Welcome, everybody, to All Star Insights, sponsored by Kids on First Foundation and Tuckahoe Sports. I'm your co host, Chris McKnight, along with my co host,
Coach Rock. Welcome to the show, guys.
And today we got a very special guest, Todd Friedman. He's got a couple of titles here, so you got to bear with us because we got to go run through these here. So, Todd is the head of sales at Win Reality, which is Blast Motion and Win Reality. He also is the hitting instructor at Legacy Baseball and a partner at Advocacy Baseball Consultants. Welcome to the show, Todd.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Thanks, Coach Rock. Yeah, great to be on.
So we always start the show with talking about how our guests got involved in youth baseball. And coming from Jersey, a little different than other parts of the country, the Northeast baseball. So can you tell us a little bit about how your youth baseball career began?
Yeah, appreciate it, Chris. So just kind of give you the Cliff Notes version of my path. Grew up in New Jersey, and so played through high school, youth and high school. And at the time, no travel baseball when we were kids, right? It was Little League baseball through high school. Was lucky enough to play college baseball at Winthrop University in South Carolina. So played there 4 years, had a great experience, played in 2 NCAA regionals, played in the Cape Cod League in 2001. Had a really good career, and kind of at the end had a little bit of an injury and didn't end up getting drafted. Had an opportunity to go play independent league, and I did not. I went back to my hometown of Morristown, New Jersey, and coached high school baseball for 4 years. Got into teaching and decided I didn't want to be in a classroom. I love coaching. I love, teaching baseball and giving instruction and coaching at a high level, but teaching was not for me. So, I decided to pivot, in about 2006, 2007, started to work in finance. And I did that for about 14 years. So I worked for a partnership hedge fund company, and just so happens, about 2018, our fund decided to close shop. So I was without a job for the first time in about 15 years. And at that time, I was, I already had a family, couldn't really go back to teaching and coaching. And so luck would have it, I got hooked up with one of my buddies who a travel program called Locked In Baseball in Morristown, New Jersey. I was coaching their 15U team, and they started using a product called Blast Motion. Didn't know what it was, but started using it with, a bunch of my players, a bunch of my hitters. And then just contacted the head of sales for Blast Motion, said, "Hey, if you ever have a job opening, I'd love to, work for the company. I love the product." This is in the infancy stages of Blast. And it turns out I ended up taking a position there. Fast forward, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, or outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, Fort Mill, South Carolina. And, so I started covering first the Southeast, and then I started working my way up covering the Northeast. So I was basically covering the entire East Coast for Blast. And, so when you're selling a product into amateur baseball, high school baseball, college baseball, you're getting a lot of connections. And so that's when I really started to get back into, the baseball world, right? Started to do, kind of what we do at Advocacy now, helping kids, patch them into schools that are potential, fits for them college wise, program wise, just because of the connections that I've had in college baseball. Then my son becomes 8 years old, and then all of a sudden I got to coach 8U baseball. And so I've started coaching for Legacy Baseball in right here in Fort Mill, South Carolina. Our 8U team, and doing a lot on the development side for the organization. As you mentioned, hitting wise, that's kind of my forte. And I've been coaching the same team, 8U, since, for the last 5 years. Now we're a 12U team, and it's, down here in the Charlotte area, it's super competitive. We play against a lot of good teams, and we've really developed our team with really the core 7 kids that are from 8U all the way now with our team. And we're playing at a majors PG level, which is great because, you really put these kids in a good situation. Now they're getting close to middle school. I have 2 middle school players on my team, and where it's actually becoming real baseball, right? You get off the little field into the big field. And so, it's been a, one of the best things that or one of the most favorite things I do is coach these boys and see how they're developing. And now, also coaching our rising senior team this summer for Legacy. So I'll be going from coaching 12U one weekend to coaching 17-year-olds the next weekend. So that should be interesting to say the least. But yeah, I mean, my life's in baseball. I work in it, in different capacities, work with you, Chris, so it's been a pleasure, and leaving the finance world for doing what you love to do is something that I can't replicate.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it's great. I did that as well from coaching a 10U team when I finished coaching independent ball, and going from a 10U team, independent ball, to a 10U team, there's definitely some to communicate, but the game is the same, right? It's just, of course, slower, but the game is the same. So just want to touch a little bit on, because I know people hear the Cape Cod League, but they really don't, if you're outside of baseball, you really don't know how prestigious that league is. It's one of the top baseball leagues, summer leagues in the country, where players get the opportunity, to play. So tell us a little just about that, how you got that opportunity and what you took away from that summer.
So, junior year at Winthrop, that was 2001. We had a phenomenal season, won 48 games, finished 24th in the country, went to the regional at ECU, lost in the finals. We thought we had a team to actually really go to Omaha, which, we got burned. We lost our first game in that region in the ECU region to University of South Florida. We decided to throw number 3, try to hold our pit, and it burned us pretty bad. And so we had to come back and play in the final. We burned through our pitching, but we get through that region. We felt really good. We were going to be matched up with Florida State, who we thought we with our pitching. We had a bunch of guys drafted from our team. And so playing in that regional, and I played really well. Someone noticed, or scout probably, I think, called, the Katuitt Kettleers. They were looking for a utility type player. I played every position. I played center field. I played third base. I was a true utility player. And so about a week after the season started in the Cape, I was just playing at home. I was like, I'm just going to stay home, work out. And they called me, Katuitt Kettleers. They called me and said, hey, we need a part-time player or a temporary player until the World Series is over. And I got up there and I played really well right away. And so they signed me to a permanent contract. And so you know, very, very clearly put, it was the best summer of my life. Being able to play at that level against the best players in the country, and just be able to experience the fans, thousands of players or fans at each game, the scouts at every game. I mean, it was just such a great experience. The amount of major leaguers that I played against in that league, it was awesome. And, it doesn't really happen the way it happened to me. Now it's such a business. Those players are all picked before. I mean, there's very rare that a player will get called after the summer starts and say, oh yeah, come up, especially a mid-major player. Typically that's going to go to a power 4 type player, but yeah, great experience, best players in the country. And Cape Cod's an awesome area to be in the summertime for sure.
I was just going to ask, with all the transitions and incorporating the different training tools that these kids need nowadays, I like the psychological aspect of the win reality and the whole blast, and the tracking of the numbers and things of that nature. I think it's awesome, man. In reference to the new training tools and how these kids can thrive. What are your thoughts about that going forward?
Well, listen, there's a lot of information out there. Data is very important, for multiple reasons. It's a way to evaluate, it's a way to develop, train, and then, it's a way to create oversight on players as well, right? Whether it's Blast, which is a phenomenal tool which Chris mentioned. Blast was who I worked with for a while, was acquired by Win Reality over the summer. And what we're doing at Win is tremendous. We're really advancing the field of play, created a product called the Smart Park, where you're able to capture data from any pitch and any batted ball data. Along with it, it's also an ABS system, just like the MLB is using. So we're bringing that to the youth level, where, umpiring and, is a major issue. And so we are creating a product at like a major league type product for the amateur level. And again, being able to grab all of this data is extremely important, because you're putting it in a game setting which is, in my opinion, the most valuable. What we're trying to do as coaches is how do we correlate training to on-field performance. And if you're using a really good product like Blast Motion or a Smart Park or anything that's going to be able to capture data in a live setting, that's the most valuable. Now, hitting off a tee and soft toss and front toss and all of that is extremely important because you're going to understand how a player's body's going to move, but you want to do it in a high leverage situation, which basically correlates it to the on-field performance.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. And, one of the things I think people miss out on with all the new technology nowadays, like a lot of the old school people are like, we don't need technology. We didn't have it back then. But the technology provides not only the players feedback, but I really think, and we use it, in our program, is the opportunity to for the coaches to learn about the player movements and really to put together programming that's going to have an impact on that player, whether it be hitting or pitching. That to me, and again, looking at the Win Reality stuff, where you can take a kid at home, he can work on, seeing pitches and identifying pitches. When can you do that in your room? I mean, you really can't. That's something that's, high tech. And we always talk about one of the hardest things to do as hitters is identifying pitches, right? Because if you can't see the ball and you don't know what pitch is coming, you could hit 98 off exit velo, off a blast, right? And say, oh, I'm hitting 98. Does that really, like you said before, does that translate to a game? And those are the tools, I think. So can you talk a little bit about that piece of the Win Reality and how that's being incorporated into the youth player?
Yeah, absolutely. So Win's legacy product is the Train VR, right? Where, it's a live setting. You put the Meta Quest goggles on and you're basically hitting off a live pitcher, right? And it depends on your level. Like you can put a major league pitcher, you can put a 12U stud, you can put whatever you like. And when you're talking about like live feedback, timing, spin rates, all of those things that are really important, is you only have limited amount of game, especially at the youth level. You could go to a tournament, right? And you play 3 games and a player gets 5 at bats, 6 at bats, right? And you don't really get that in-game experience. Well, if you're in your living room and you can put the goggles on and you can, the VR on, and you can take 40 legitimate in-game swings a week, that's basically going to help your timing. It's going to help your rhythm, pitch recognition, all of that. So that's really the genesis of the product, is that you're putting yourself in a non-game experience in an in-game experience, if that makes any sense. So, it's really, and it's used at every level. We have major leaguers using our product in their hotel rooms, right? We have college players all the way down to 8U players, right? So there's a way that you can use the product to make it so that you're playing in game when you're not in game, if that makes any
No,
sense.
that is definitely, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think players, definitely could benefit from that. Again, looking to some old school guys, you always hear about, oh, we don't need this, we don't need that, we just need a tee and baseballs. But I think those guys miss out because it's like if you don't stay current on, whether it's new technology or coaching techniques, I can't coach the way I did back in the 90s. It's just not going to be, accepted. And just the way the technology was, with a video camera back then and squiggly lines when you go to pause it and try to see a hitter's hands or what their body is doing. Now we have all this great, technology to help. For the coaches, they should really embrace that and look at it as a training tool to help them become better coaches as well.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
mean,
what do you think about the umpire, the recall on the strikes, on the balls and strikes that's happening in today's time, and things of that nature in reference to, hey, I need that review. I need you to make sure that was a strike. What do you think about that?
listen, I think eventually in the next few years, the calls are going to be from the ABS system. right? I don't think umpires at home plate will be calling any balls in strike. Now, there'll be an umpire there, and he'll have an earpiece telling him if it's a ball or a strike. I think we're going to that because what the ABS is going to do is it's going to tell you exactly what it was, right? There's no argument, right? So once it becomes more efficient and ease of use, it's going to be the actual ball strike calls without a doubt. And listen, we're talking about, what is it, 12 seconds? I think 12 seconds is the review, something of that nature. So it's not really obtrusive to the game. The game has sped up, vault pitch clocks and everything else, right? So I think this is just another tool in the tool chest for MLB. It's going to work very well, without a doubt, and it's going to be the standard.
Yeah, because tennis has had a system comparable to that for the lines, because the ball's going 100 miles an hour, and you're asking some line judge to see, on a 2 or 3 inch line if the ball was in or out. And tennis has been using it, and it's been successful. So, and Major League Baseball, again, just it's old, it's been around a long time, and I think making changes is hard. But I think they're finally starting to realize. I was reading something yesterday. That one umpire, what did he miss? 6 calls. 6 calls got overturned. I mean, and in a big series, or in playoffs and in World Series, when we saw it in the World Baseball Classic, again, whether you agree or not, that pitch was definitely that they got punched out on was a ball, but they don't use the ABS in the World Baseball
That's
Classic.
right.
And
100%.
I just see the technology piece. If it's available, and it's for good, why not implement it in the sport?
And it's going to get right.
Do you see, Todd?
And it's going to be right, Chris, right? Let's just get it right. That's the thing,
exactly.
Right.
So for Little League and Youth Leagues and Pony League and all the leagues, let's fast forward 5 years, because of the problems we're having. Coach Rock and I both coach in this area. I know you probably see it down where you are, trying to get qualified umpires to be at games. And we had a game last week, we can only get one umpire, and again, it's hard for one dude behind the plate to make calls in the field, without a doubt. So do you think this is going to be a kind of a revolutionary piece in 5 years, where leagues are going to start going to this program?
100%. And that is what we're building at Win. We're building a product that is going to alleviate that problem at the youth level. We're hoping to be in thousands of complexes within the next couple of years. And what we're doing is that, we hear it from every event company. We're hearing it from every facility. We have issues with umpires. We have issues scheduling them. We have issues having them show up on time. We're having issues, with the calls with parents, and the idea of what we're providing is we're taking that away, and we're putting one umpire in the field, and you're going to be able to run a more efficient game. And at the end of the day, you're going to save on costs, significant costs, because of our system, and saving on what an umpire actually costs. We're, the really, looking at what MLB is doing with Hawkeye, and Hawkeye is a product made by Sony, and that is what's in all major league stadiums, which does StatCast and everything else, and what is doing their ABS. And we're taking that, model, if you will, and putting it into the amateur level, because obviously most amateur places can't afford what a Hawkeye is, right? So we're doing that. We're having a lot of success in our testing, and we're deploying, starting very soon into high schools, colleges, and amateur complexes all over the country.
Next thing you know, they're going to be putting chips in baseballs.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
the NFL's already doing that with the RFID in the footballs that they use. That's why you can't take any of the footballs out. But, I was thinking about that. I was like, the next thing you know, we're going to have cameras on baseballs and chips in baseballs, and it's going to be tracked using that as well. It's just really wild to me how much the industry is pivoting and increasing technology year after year, and I think it's phenomenal.
It's just not going to stop.
At the ABCA, like the last 2 years that I was there, the technology that is available across the board for training, for strength training, everything, mental training. It's like increased threefold from 5 years ago. And it's not, I know 5 years ago is not that long, but it's increased. Do you see the blast piece for the bats being used a lot for in-game competition?
Yeah, listen, I mean, Blast is being used in game across the board. I mean, if the NFHS hasn't approved it, so it's not used in high school. The NCAA, it's been tested where the ACC was able to use it last year in game. You would see sensors on bats. And minor league baseball, it's approved. So if you go to any minor league game, there could be a potential for Blast to be used in game. Spring training, it's used through in game. And again, just like going to the point that I mentioned earlier, is that the best way to correlate any of this information is to do it in game, right? Because you're in a high leverage situation. You have a pitcher throwing max effort. You have a hitter that's got adrenaline going through. Like, you want to understand what your body's doing in a game setting. And that's why Blast is so important to do it in game. Now, if it's going to be widespread to where it's all over, you can use sensors in game. I don't know if that's going to happen, but without a doubt, you go to any travel ball tournament, you can use blasting game. With our players, we've been using blasting game for years. It's just the best way for us to understand what they're doing in a live high leverage situation.
You're on mute, Ruck.
My apologies. I love how Game Changer has also evolved as far as all its record keeping, adding a couple more technology pieces in on how they score and overall data management. I'm very impressed with how they've evolved as well. So I'm looking at like I can actually see there being more apps and more more training tools and things of that nature that can furtherly evolve and score a game. And we won't always have to just use Game Changer as a frame of reference with a lot of our games, because that's what we use. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, Game Changer is the standard, right, for scoring. I mean, it has been for years. I mean, and there's going to be other products coming out. Again, our product will be a scoring mechanism as well, and there's going to be, probably more competition in the market, but, parents love statistics, parents love video, right? And the more streaming you can get, the more opportunity you can get to get clips, highlight clips, or if you're not able to make it to a game, grandma, grandpa, whoever, you can watch it on, a streaming service. That's just going to be more prevalent, like, especially with complexes. You're going to go to a lot of complexes and they're all going to have some type of a streaming product, data capture product and scoring. Just where we're headed. I don't know the numbers, guys, but I know this is a billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar industry that's not really stopping anytime soon. So there's just going to be more advancements as we move along.
Yeah, I was reading something last week. They're doing the big conference in April up in Philadelphia on the business of youth sports, and they said that it's a $40 billion industry, only going to get bigger. And now with all these venture capital companies coming in and buying, youth facilities and buying, youth training facilities, because they see the direction that youth sports in general, and especially baseball. I mean, you think about it, like you said, Todd, when you were playing, I know growing up where I was in New York, you played little league baseball, and then, if you were lucky enough, okay, you played another 2 weeks of all-star baseball, and that was basically it. There was nothing else, and there was no year-round training programs. We had a batting cage, but it was at the go-kart place, with token. You go there and you hit in the batting cage, but then you had the go-karts racing around the track. And nowadays, just excellent facilities across the country, just focused on, hitting, pitching, places like Tread that just cater to pitching, and players from all over the country come to a facility like that. So definitely see you know an increase in the use of technology, which I think is great for the training. And, also I think parents miss out, and you can talk a little on this, but, the accountability that, like a blast, provides for a player.
Listen, Chris, accountability is everything, right? I mean, we want to be able to, when parents have a question, why isn't little Johnny hitting third in the lineup? Why isn't, well, there's evidence to say that he doesn't take his swings. There's evidence to say, he's not working hard or working harder than Steve, right? So I think like accountability is so crucial because we lose track of that. And a lot of what's going on in society in today's world is like, it's everyone deserves this or deserves that. Like accountability is real. Like, if you're working or not. And so I think that's really important piece of, whether it's technology or some type of an oversight tool and component, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny because in college, when I was coaching in college, we didn't have a lot of this technology. So my biggest technology was, about the weight room. We had swipe cards. So I knew when the guys when they were going to lift or not. But that was like the extent of, the technology, if they were putting the work in, and if we could see them, in the cages and stuff. But yeah, the accountability piece, I think for the
Huge.
younger players is crucial because then you have something to back up. And not that, but like you said, unfortunately, parents and players, I think there's a sense of entitlement that, they're on a team and that just means they're going to play and they're going to hit fourth. And nowadays that, the coaches, I know like Coach Rock and I, we don't play that. And I know, Todd, you don't do that either. It's about if you're doing the work, yeah, you're going to get the opportunities because they have to learn that when they get to high school or college. You could be the nicest kid in the world, have the nicest parents. That doesn't translate to opportunities on the field. What translates to opportunities on the field, what you're doing in practice. And now there's ways to measure your achievement in practice. So that is going to roll over to games. And then when you get into a game, it's a whole nother level because you still got to be able to achieve that in games as well.
Yeah. Chris, we talk about all the time, like, we have a lot of players that we've advised over the last few years with advocacy that are really good players. We've had power 4 guys. We've had D3 guys. We went through all the spectrum, right? The ultimate thing is performance, and one of the biggest values that we do at advocacy is that we get coaches to watch players, right? We do it during the spring, we do it in the summer, fall, whatever. And so the metrics are all there. They could go to a camp, throw a great bullpen, hit 110 exit velo, all this stuff. And they go into a game and they're overwhelmed, at the plate, or they're overwhelmed. They're 40% strikes during the game. That's not performance, right? So, there's nothing that's given to you, right? You have to be able to perform well in a game situation to be able to validate a recruitment or being on a team, right? And so I think that's the biggest misconception is that with data and PG and perfect game or PBR and all of these, which are all great platforms to be able to showcase players, it's just the in-game component's the most important, right? In my opinion. And I think like, do you need velo as a pitcher to be able to play at a high level? Yes. Velo's the key to get you in the door, right? And then you got to actually perform, right? And then if you run a 6.4 60, yes, that's the key to get you in the door, but you actually know how to run the bases and know how to steal and know how to hit and, runners over and all that stuff. So I think like, again, it's, unfortunately it's my generation's fault. A lot of this, and is that we try to, our kids are up here and they're the best. But in reality, there's just so much going on and that, there's a lot out of your control and you have to be able to control those controllables. Right. And a lot of people don't, and so, it's just amazing to us. Like, we see a kid play and we talk to the family and they're like, what schools are you interested in? Well, they're listing, NC State, North Carolina, Wake Forest, when they're legitimately a Division III player at best. Right. And it's just a concept of like, how do I even figure this out? Here's how you figure it out. You go to a college game and you watch those guys and am I there? Go to a Division III game and watch a kid throw 92, 93 and say, all right, I want to play at a Division I school. Like, those are the things that high school players need to do to really understand what level they should be looking at.
I wanted to point out, thank you for that too, Todd. Appreciate that, man. And I wanted to piggyback on that and point out the difference between a practice player and a game player. Because I had to send this soliloquy, I had to send a freaking scroll on my group chat about this whole speech about the importance of understanding how can you shine in practice and not translate it to the field. Like, it has been the most, excuse me, my allergies are crazy. It has been frustrating to see how these kids look really motivated. They're loose, they're relaxed, they're having fun, they're in practice. But then the moment they get to that game, where did they go? I'm just like, what is happening? I know Chris talked about the sports psychologist kind of situation. I'm like, yo, hey, fly him out here. We need to have a conversation. Let's go ahead and have a sit down because I need I need more translation from the practice field to the game field. What are your thoughts about that? And what do you tell those players that are having issues with that transition?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of players that, have the physical tools. They just don't have the mental capacity to compete and to compete in front of a coach or recruiter or scout, however you want to, call it. You have to try to block out the outside noise when you're playing, right? And I just think, this is a something that's mentioned constantly. I think that the world of social media has really put a damper and it put too much pressure on athletes because listen, if I went 0 for 3 in my high school game, like, I'm in a little box score in my local newspaper, like, no one knows about it, right? Well, now you go on Game Changer, you go on Twitter, you go on or X, and you can see how a player's struggling, or so these kids are so highlighted more, so it's harder. And I'll defend players nowadays. It's harder to play now than when I played, like 100%. It's not even a question. So I think just players in general just put so much pressure on themselves and they're worrying about the wrong things. They're worrying about, a sophomore is worrying about like a college, like, oh, if I don't hit 350 or 400 this season, a college is going to recognize. Like, what are you talking about? Like, go out and help your team win a game. Like, that's the biggest, what we should be learning or understanding. But I just think a lot, Rock, is like kids put way too much pressure on themselves. There's kids that have too much anxiety when they play, and so like, the mental health thing is real with athletes. And like, again, like, I mean, if 1998, like someone told me to go see a sports psychologist, I'd be like, what is that? I don't even know what that is. What is mental health? Like now it's like a real thing that players struggle with. And I think, I hate to be the old guy and, and say this, but social media is a big problem. One of the reasons that is the reason it is. And like you can say, listen, if you're following the news and you're looking at what, Meta is getting sued by and they lost a huge lawsuit for, they're really hurting a lot of kids, and so something needs to be done. I don't know what that is. I'm not a politician, but um, that's major. That's one of the major reasons why kids cannot perform in games.
Appreciate that, Todd. Thank you.
Yeah, I try to tell my guys, don't go on there and compare yourself. Don't look at what the players doing because everybody's path. I know in advocacy we tell guys that too. Everybody's path in recruiting is different. It doesn't. You can't look at somebody else because when parents call us and they get just saw, my friend's son just signed and this guy just signed and we're still waiting. We have some really good players right now that are still waiting that are power four guys, really.
That's right.
And yeah, they're still waiting. And if they compared themselves, man, they'd be calling us every single day. But I think some of those guys have a realization that, okay, it's going to come, but everybody's path is different. And, when you see guys on social media, nobody ever posts the guys striking out
Right.
or hitting a batter or, having a meltdown and no one ever shows that. It's always highlight after highlight after highlight. And it's funny, we played a game yesterday. We were in the championship and we lost in the championship and our kids played well. I mean, and we made a couple of mistakes, whatever. And at the end of the game, I just told them, I said, you got to play 3 games. You play 2 games on Saturday, then you have to play 3 games to get to the championship. It's all about resiliency. And if you can learn that now at this early age and have that resiliency to be able to bounce back, because we got to play again next weekend. Or like in college, you got to play maybe the next day or 2 days from now. So, the sport psychology piece is huge. And that's why every major league team employs sports psychologists from their major league program all the way down to their minor leagues, because they know that keeping their players focused and keeping their players, in line with expectations is really important.
Yeah. I mean, one of the nice things too, Chris, is that we can advocate when we talk to these families, and a lot of kids don't have someone like us to help them, is that we tell them that, like, trust us, like, it's okay if you don't get a call on August 1st of your junior year, like, it's okay. We're still early too. If you really think about it, we're still early in the Division I process for mid-majors. The majority of mid-majors have not committed, juniors, 27s. They're probably going to look a lot in the portal and kind of see how that is, that circles around. But I mean, like, you have all these kids in the fall, that fall rush of Power 4 schools, committing players in the junior fall. Well, it's because, again, they can do that, right? But the majority of there's 320 Division I schools, right? I mean, so I think just, again, the highlight of what social media does is one of those things, like, and then that player who's a dude, who's a real good player, like you said, we have a couple guys that are super high level, and they're uncommitted, and they're going to be high level Division I players. They're like, we tell them, you're okay, you're in a good spot, like, so it gives them a little bit of relief.
Yeah, without a doubt. So we're coming up on our time here, man, but we could talk about
Yeah.
this all day, just with the
Yeah.
technology and the players and stuff. But some really good insights from Coach Friedman today. We really appreciate your time, and definitely down the road, we'll get you back on.
For sure.
Once the Win Reality stuff gets into the parks, and
Yeah.
we'd love to have you back on and really talk about the progress and how that's going as well. So really appreciate it, Todd. Coach Rock, always good seeing you, man.
You too. You the man. Thank you so much, guys.
And thanks everybody for tuning in again. All-Star Insights, all things youth baseball, sponsored by Kids on First Foundation and Tuckahoe Sports. And we'll see you next time.